What do you want me to do? Just stay here? I mean, dude, I'm working at a grain mill. I've got nothing. Everybody else has a career, a house. They're, you know, and I'm just like stuck right now. So I have to go and I have to do this for me. And if it doesn't work out, I'll move home. I mean, and then I guess I'm not meant to move away. But I have to try to figure out a way to kick this thing, dude. I can't be like this forever. It's not gonna be like this forever. It's just something I have to go do. I know. I don't know, man. I'll talk to you. Bye. Hey, I'm Tim Cool, and this is my American dream. Here I am in central eastern Iowa, a place that I've dreamed of living since I was a kid. And I can't really tell you exactly when the dream started or began, but I know as a young bow hunter I fantasized about hunting the deer that I read and saw about that were in the Midwest. You know, before I moved here, I was down in the dumps. I was downright depressed, but I still had this vision in my head that if I could just get here, that over time that would subside. I told myself, you know, if I was feeling better, there wouldn't be anything that would stop me from moving here. And so I just went with that. I told myself that this was an opportunity for opportunities. And in fact, when you cross a river, any river, into Iowa, it says, "Welcome to Iowa, fields of opportunities." And it's the truth. As soon as I unpacked my bags and got settled in, I started scouting. Well, right now I am scouting public land here in Iowa, and it's my first weekend here, so I figured I'd get after it, and it's nice weather, so just gonna do a little scouting mostly, but have my eyes on the ground looking for sheds too. But man, this is beautiful. There's a little finger right here that comes out. I'm gonna hit that pretty hard. I got a couple more spots I'm gonna go to too, try to find some you know, nicer bedding area, kind of cedar thickets if I can. But anyway, this is the start of hopefully an amazing story here. East Coast moving to Iowa. I wanted to get a good basis for what was around the area, north, south, east, and west of where I live. And so I just put the boots on the dirt, and that was how I just passed the time, really. I was by myself, didn't really know anybody. And every Saturday and Sunday, that's what I did the whole entire day, is scout public land. I learned a lot about Iowa. Number one is a lot of this public land is great hunting, and sometimes it's hard to find a place that's better than another. One day, I told myself, if I knock on 50 doors, I should be able to at least get one spot. So I just started going door to door, talking to people, introducing myself, letting them know I was willing to work on their farm, offers any services that I could to hunt, to bow hunt. You know, I really don't have any enthusiasm towards gun hunting. And some people gave me permission. So with the public land, private land starting to come to fruition, spring rolled around and it was time to chase turkeys, because in Nebraska, it opens up at the end of March for a bow hunter. So off I went for a 3-day turkey hunt in Nebraska. And little did I know, it was Nebraska's infested with turkeys. And it didn't take long to get on them.
Kill him. Oh, he's beyond the stake. He's beyond the stake. Okay, kill him, kill him, kill him.
He gone. He just blasted into that tree. He just blasted into that tree. Oh my God. He just blasted. That dude. Oh my God. Yes. Dude, we just drove overnight, buddy. Yes. And oh my God. We actually thought we spooked this bird. Oh yeah, baby. Little Super Jake action. Dustin and I, we drove all night. We got in at 3 in the morning. We slept on the side of the road. We woke up, downpouring rain. We're thinking, what are we doing? But rain broke up and we thought we better at least give it a college try. And it's only about 7:30. And we got a nice Super Jake on the ground. Oh, 5-6 inch beard. Guess what? We ain't here for a long time. We're here for a good time down in Nebraska. We're just getting started. I want the back one. I want the back one. The back one's shorter. Dude, you better draw.
That's exciting now, wasn't it?
After a successful turkey hunt in Nebraska, I realized that I left my GoPro in a cornfield. And I guess that's what you get for trying to get a second angle. And so I didn't get too worked up about it. I just went back the next weekend and started hunting turkeys again. Unfortunately, things didn't work out according to plan. But all in all, Nebraska's a special place, especially if you're a turkey hunter. A few weeks later, April passed by and it was starting to get into May, and I got an email, text message from the Royer family in Kansas. And I was invited to hunt Rio Grande turkeys, something I've also always wanted to do since I was a kid. I've heard they're really aggressive, very vocal, and just in high abundance in Kansas. So I scraped money together from the 2 or 3 jobs I was working at the time, and off I went. bow hunting Rio Grande turkeys in Kansas. Well, as you can see, it didn't take long to tag out. And I'll be honest, I've never seen a turkey cross a barbed wire fence like he did. But all is fair in love and war. As June approached, I figured it was time to start taking inventory on what was around the area. So I put my trail cameras out and started to get some really nice bucks on trail camera. And some of the bucks, I had to kind of talk myself down off the ledge because they were nice and bucks that I've never seen before and of that caliber, but with the encouragement of family and friends, it truly wasn't what I came to Iowa for. As the summer started to roll on, I knew that Nebraska early season whitetail deer was right around the corner. My good friend from college and best friend Cody Hesseltine and I traveled to southeastern Nebraska and soon found out the difficulties of hunting down there in the early parts of the season. There's so much corn and really no reason for them to leave. They've got all they need with the corn fields that butt up to creek bottoms and drainages and grassy sloughs that we barely saw any deer. Even driving around at night, it was difficult. Even in the morning scouting, some days we put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 miles clocked in on the scouting trips, and it just was a difficult hunt. And we split up to try to cover more ground and scout more public land, and I walked over this hill and I said to myself, that's the tree right there. It was a tractor path that met up with a cornfield and a bean field, and I said that cottonwood tree is going to be our ticket, or this hunt's going to be a bust. And it started to get that time where you start to question and ponder if you're going to see anything. It was the last night of the hunt, And here come this old 8-pointer, and I look up and Cody's grabbing his bow as he approaches the 20 yards.
Well, it was a tough tracking job, but once the arrow came out, we got on some blood. It got a little hairy when he ran down the creek, but as soon as he started coming up the creek bank, there was a ton of blood, and he only made it 10 feet up over the bank, and he's dead here, so I'm not gonna lie, this is by far one of the smallest bucks I've shot, but Tim and I worked our asses off this week. When we hunted hard, this is the first buck we've actually had come in range other than that like little 3-pointer today, and I'm real happy with him. I can't complain at all. He's a lot bigger body than I'm used to. He's got a decent rack on him, probably a nice 2-year-old, so thank you, Tim.
This deer runs off into the creek bottom and piles up on the other side. And the bank was 10 to 12 or 15 feet high in most spots, so we really had no way to get this deer out of this creek bottom. So I had to walk a half a mile back to the truck as Cody dragged the deer down the creek bottom and to go to the next closest bridge, which was a mile as the crow flies to the nearest closest bridge. So, you know, it wasn't the biggest buck either of us had killed in the last few years, but the hunt, the difficulty, the experience of hunting new terrain just makes you a better hunter. And, you know, it really was icing on the cake that it all came together and that, you know, I got to share. We had a great time at camp, and everybody in the area, all the locals are very nice and helpful, tried to help us out and let us know where they've been seeing some deer. It was just a great experience, and I hope to go back to Nebraska sometime soon. Well, the itch continued throughout September, but I had to wait, unfortunately, till October 1st to hunt in Iowa. And I had a buck that I saw. He's an 8-pointer on my trail cameras, and I've seen him in person at this point 3 times. He seemed to come in the field every 3 to 4 nights. It was very inconsistent, but consistent enough that I thought if I had the right conditions, he would come out. On the second night of the season, we set up over the alfalfa field, and
second day of the Iowa archery season. Got my buddy Matt behind the camera, and on a small farm I did some work for the farmer. Got some pretty good bucks and a mess load of does, so I'm just gonna feel it out and see what happens tonight. It's pretty hot, but been seeing him out here in the clover.
It was about 5 o'clock, and this lone doe come out, and I look at my buddy Matt. He looks at me and he goes, "You gonna shoot her?" And I said, "Why not?"
First night over this clover field. I know I got some bucks on camera, but I'm a bargain hunter, and that was too good of a deal to pass up. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, dude, that was awesome.
Well, with my first doe, my first deer in Iowa, piled up over the fence, I sat back with another arrow nocked and watched several deer come out into the field around that perfect time. And I looked to my left, and there he is standing at the fence. The big 8-pointer, you know, he's probably a 4.5-year-old deer. And I'm gonna shoot this joker if he decides to come along this fence. And unfortunately, he didn't like the cars that began to stop and slow down to look at him. Similar experience to what I had when I stopped to look at him. And he actually was really boogered up, really tensed up, and he exited the field pretty quickly. And looking back, I'm glad that I chose not to shoot. The deer was 43 yards, and you know, I don't believe in rushing things. Everything has to be perfect as a bow hunter, even though bow hunting isn't a perfect sport. Things have to align for shots like that to take place, and it just didn't feel right. The next few days, I never saw him again. So I moved off to another property a little farther south and had a quick encounter with a big 10-pointer that I never got a shot at. And after that, things just kind of went quiet. I moved my cameras around to try to get on one, and friends of mine that were local that have been hunting Iowa for years and years were like, they're in the corn, stay patient, stay patient. Well, off to Kansas I went the last week of October, hunting public land. And we climbed up in this honey locust tree, and I had to pluck off all the thorns and needles that were up on the side just to get 2 stands wedged up in there. In fact, I had a stand the whole time up in that tree, and as soon as we got set up, I look, and here comes this big 8-pointer. I got a little excited, so I started calling and snort wheezing, and he postured up. He would have came, I think, if I had a decoy, but he wasn't dumb enough to just come in blind. He could see and scan the whole area. There was nothing posing this threat that I was trying to perceive that was there, and it was a great hunt in Kansas as well, but the stars just didn't align. You know, the unit that I had very little public land, and it made for a difficult hunt. I got back on Halloween, and I was still itching, rip-roaring, ready to go, and the plan was to leave work early that day and head down to southern Iowa. Unfortunately, but fortunately for me, I had to opt to hunt a stand closer to home. I had hunted this stand 4 or 5 times and not even seen a deer. But going off my trail camera pictures, I knew that these deer were coming out of the corn and into the timber to cross the creek and head to different portions of the property. So I actually hunted with my wind blowing out of the corn and into the woods. And that night, as it got to be around this time that I'm filming this video, 2 does walked the edge of the corn. And for whatever reason, call it luck, call it fate, whatever you want to call it, they hopped the fence and started walking right towards me. And guess who was in tow?
That's him. That's the big one. That's the big 10.
It was just one of the most spiritual moments that I've ever had in my whole entire life. Meh.
Oh my God, yes! Yes, I smoked him. Yes! Oh my God. That's a giant. Oh my God. I can't believe it. Oh, that's the biggest buck I've ever seen, let alone shot. Oh, yeah.
My arrow blew right through him. I got good blood on the arrow, and see if we can't find some blood here. I think I got a good shot. He's right here.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes, buddy.
Thanks, Matt. That's awesome.
Dude.
Oh God. Well, here he is. My first Iowa buck. I moved all the way out to Iowa this year from New York with a few $100s in the bank and a big dream. With the help of some good friends along the way and some gracious farmers, I got my first Iowa buck on the ground, and I really don't know what to say. It's a pretty emotional experience, but it just goes to show you, if you dream big and pursue it, anything can happen. I'll just never forget the three of us walking up on that deer and how big he was to me. You know, a lot of times deer get smaller when you get close to them, or you're just not sure, but I have never seen a deer like that in my whole entire life, and I to this day I couldn't believe it. And I've got that deer on my wall now, and I had it taxidermied by Joe Meter. I wanted it done by the best person, you know, the guy's a pioneer of the taxidermy industry. I wanted it done by him. And every day I look at that deer and I still can't believe it. You know, that a guy from New York can come out here and do that stuff. I think it's very important that people like follow what they're put on earth for. They find what their calling is, and they just do it. I mean, there's no better feeling than that. And it's tough being away from your family sometimes, but your family wants the best for you. They want you to be happy. And at the end of the day, you've got only one life to live. And when you are laying on your deathbed, you want to look back and say, yeah, I did all that. And people, you talk to them, and yeah, I've been there, I did that. You know, you gave it your all. And to me, that's a life that's worth living. And you know, if you're watching this video and you're going through a hard time, it's not gonna stay, and you can do whatever you want to do in life. And you know, if you like this video, please like it, please share it, and please follow your dream, whatever that is, whether it's hunting or anything. It will come together if you give it the time and the energy and put forth everything you got. Dude, I literally almost started crying.
Oh, I had never hit record.
Bullshit.